I never imagined that my life as a single dad would lead to saving a billionaire's life. The day everything changed started like any other. The sun broke through the clouds, illuminating my small apartment. I tightened my grip on the coffee mug, feeling its warmth seep into my palm. Just a typical Saturday. Or so I thought. That I will never forget the moment the phone rang. It was not an ordinary call. My heart raced. I could feel my pulse quickening. The voice on the other end was frantic. It belonged to my old friend, Charlie, who sounded completely out of breath, the kind of breath that comes after running for your life. "You need to come to the park. You won't believe what just happened." Life had thrown its punches at me before. As a single dad, struggles were my constant companions. I reached for my son's hand, his small fingers wrapped around mine like a vice grip, grounding me. He looked up at me with big, trusting eyes, filled with innocence, and I knew I had to protect that. But my curiosity pulled me away. The park was buzzing, but something felt off. I could feel it in the air, a slight electricity that knotted my stomach. The laughter of children echoed, but in the distance, an ominous crowd gathered. As I approached, the noise faded. Eyes were glued to the ground. Whispers floated like ghosts around us. A chill crept down my spine. When I pushed through the throng, there he was. Nathaniel Blake, the billionaire, sprawled unconscious on the ground. His white collar was soaked in blood, the gleam of his expensive watch contrasting sharply with the dirt beneath him. I felt a lump in my throat. This was the man who built half the city, admired and feared, now brought low. My mind raced. How could this happen? Without thinking, I knelt down beside him, the world around me fading away. I touched his shoulder, and the warmth surged through me, a fleeting moment of connection. I could hear my son whispering behind me, confusion folding over his innocent face. "Daddy, is he going to be okay?" My heart shattered at the question. How could I lie to him? The crowd gasped as I focused on Nathaniel. I could almost hear the heartbeat of the universe around us, an intense thrum echoing in my ears. I needed to act fast. Something shifted inside me, a blend of fear and determination. He couldn't die here. Not like this. That I could taste the urgency. The air was heavy, charged with anxiety. I pressed my hands to his chest, feeling for a heartbeat, praying it was still there. 100 eyes watched in silence, some judging, others expecting. I closed my eyes for just a moment, seeking clarity, seeking strength, when suddenly, a voice pierced the stillness. "Get back. You don't know what you're doing." I opened my eyes to see a woman pushing through the crowd, her features a combination of anger and desperation. An unsettling feeling twisted in my gut. Who was she? What did she know? Everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. The woman reached for Nathaniel, her fingers trembling. My heart was hammering in my chest, a desperate rhythm, each beat echoing the question that circled like a hawk overhead. What did she want? As I stepped back, confusion whirled around us, sunlight catching the glimmer of uncertainty in the eyes of the onlookers. The world was changing in a matter of seconds, unfolding a mystery I never asked for. What tangled web had I stepped into? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air around me felt charged, crackling with uncertainty and fear. As I stepped back, allowing the woman to take center stage, I saw the flicker of desperation in her eyes. She knelt beside Nathaniel, her hands hovering above his bloodied collar like a moth drawn to a flame. My instinct was to pull her away, to reclaim the situation, but something about her presence felt pivotal. "Get an ambulance," she shouted, her voice breaking the tension like glass shattering in the silence. That I looked around, suddenly aware that the crowd was still. A sea of faces, each reflecting their own version of fear, anxiety, or morbid curiosity. I felt as if I were drowning in it, suffocating under the weight of their expectations. My son, clutching my leg, stared wide-eyed, and I wished more than anything that I could shield him from this chaos. I tore my gaze from Nathaniel to kneel next to my boy, wrapping an arm around his tiny shoulders. "Hey, buddy," I whispered, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my chest. "It's going to be okay. I'm right here." His small body relaxed against me, and for a moment, I focused on the rise and fall of his small breaths to ground myself that I need to know if he's alive. The woman's voice cut into my thoughts again. I looked back at her, noticing the fierce determination that made her face almost radiant in the distressing moment. Her dark hair fell across her face, but her eyes, oh, those eyes were filled with a mix of fear and a fragile hope that mirrored my own. "What do you know?" I blurted out, the words spilling from me in a rush. "Why are you so worried?" She glanced at me briefly, momentarily breaking her intense focus on Nathaniel. "I know him," she replied, her lips trembling. "He's more than just this, he's someone who needs saving beyond this." Her words were cryptic, and I felt a tug of intuition that this was about more than just an accident. As sirens wailed in the distance, I took a breath. "You know him? Then tell me what to do." Without hesitating, she nodded. "Apply pressure here, to stop the bleeding." She placed her hand on his shoulder, and instinctively, I mirrored her actions. The warmth of Nathaniel's skin sent jolts of adrenaline through my veins. Just as we worked together under the weight of uncertainty, I caught a glimpse of my son. He watched, his little face scrunched with worry, eyes darting between me and the billionaire on the ground, raw innocence standing starkly against the grim reality before us. The pair of paramedics burst through the crowd, and my heart pounded with a mixture of relief and frustration. They rushed to Nathaniel, pushing us aside. I could hear them barking orders as they assessed the scene. But as I stepped back, uncertainty gnawed at my thoughts. The woman still knelt close, eyes locked on Nathaniel, as if he were a fragile glass bauble she feared losing. She whispered something, a prayer, or perhaps an apology. It felt deeply intimate, and I felt like an intruder. "Who are you?" I asked her again, desperation creeping into my voice. "You seem to know him." With a slow, measured breath, she finally met my gaze. "I'm Ava," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I used to work for him." The revelation hit me like a thunderclap, flooding my mind with questions. "Used to? Why did you stop?" Before she could respond, the paramedics began to lift Nathaniel onto a stretcher. The crowd shifted, an electric pulse of anticipation. I wanted answers, but they were whisking him away, my connection to this unfolding chaos stripping away with each second that passed. Ava stood, her face pale, as she followed. I reached out, my instincts begging me to keep her close. "Wait," I blurted, my voice cracking. "Please, tell me if he's going to be okay. I don't know why I feel this way, but I need to understand that I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "But he's more than just a billionaire. He's my friend." "Your friend?" I repeated, trying to grasp this new layer of complexity. A friend in trouble wasn't who I thought I'd be dealing with amidst my own struggles, but that voice inside me, the one that had guided me through fatherhood's toughest moments, urged me to dig deeper, to uncover the truth lurking in the shadows. The ambulance doors slammed shut. As it pulled away, I felt a piercing ache in my chest. Did Nathaniel have a chance? I turned to Ava, but she had already stepped back, tears streaming down her cheeks, leaving me alone with the burden of unfamiliar uncertainties. Then my son tugged at my shirt, his voice barely audible against the distance. "Daddy, are we going to see him again? Is he going to be all right?" In that moment, I felt the world shift once more, and chaos spiraled around us. I pulled him close and whispered, "I don't know, but we'll find a way to help. We have to believe." But in the back of my mind, unease swirled like storm clouds. As the last siren faded into the distance, the gnawing question remained. Who was Nathaniel Blake, really? And how had I unknowingly stepped into a life-and-death struggle that threatened not just our lives, but the very fabric of our futures? The weight of the unknown hung heavily in the air as my heart ached for answers, and the fear that everything was just beginning. I sat on the curb, holding my son close as scattered snippets of conversations filled the air around us, a chaotic symphony of worries and whispers. People exchanged glances, and the distance between them felt like a vast chasm filled with unspoken fears and unanswered questions. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the world while the image of Nathaniel's pale face clung to my memory, an anchor, dragging me deeper into confusion and dread. "Why did he get hurt, Daddy?" my son asked, his tiny voice fragile. breaking through my haze of thoughts. We don't know yet, buddy. Sometimes bad things just happen. I forced a smile, but inside, a storm raged. As much as I wanted to shield him from pain, I was painfully aware that we were knee-deep in a reality that wasn't forgiving. The distant sound of sirens had faded, but the buzzing anxiety had settled in my chest like a live wire. It gnawed at me, heralding an impending storm. I yearned for clarity amid the chaos, yet all that surrounded me was ambiguity. That I released my breath slowly and looked up. The sun had begun to set, casting a warm golden hue over the scene, ironically beautiful against the earthiness of the pain. Beyond the chaos, the community gathered around each other, still whispering about the billionaire, the man who now lay vulnerable in a hospital somewhere. Invisible, yet influential. Will he be all right? My son's innocence sparked a flame of hope in the dismal atmosphere. Yes, I said, the word tumbling out like a fragile promise. But in my heart of hearts, I questioned if I believed my own words. Can we go to the hospital? He insisted, hope glimmering in his eyes as he clutched onto my hand. For a moment, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to protect him and shield him from the unknown, but another part, an inexplicable connection to Nathaniel's plight, urged me to push forward. Okay, let's go, I said, allowing the glimmer of hope to take precedence over fear. We made our way to the nearest hospital, my son's small steps steadying my own. Each stride toward that building felt monumental, and though tension permeated the air, moments of warmth flickered within. A nurse greeted us at the entrance, and for a brief moment, her smile illuminated our surroundings. Are you here to see Mr. Blake? She asked, her voice gentle. Yes, I replied, heart racing. How is he? She glanced down at her clipboard, then back up at me. I can't give you any medical information, but I assure you the doctors are doing everything they can to. My heart sunk. Her reassuring tone did little to quell the restlessness within me. I felt helpless and adrift, but at least we had stepped away from the chaos outside. As we waited in the sterile white room filled with fluorescent lights, I could feel my son's small fingers intertwining with mine. He doodled furiously on a piece of paper, lost in his own world, yet still sensing the heaviness in the air. I watched him, mesmerized by the innocence he brought into this bleak space. Daddy, he said suddenly, breaking the uncomfortable silence. What if I draw a picture for Mr. Blake? Maybe it will make him feel better. His idea felt precious, a diamond in the rough. That's a wonderful idea. I smiled, feeling warmth crawl back into my chest as I handed him a few crayons and a fresh page. Watching him scribble, I wished it could wash away the uncertainty that loomed over us. Minutes morphed into hours. Time felt dissonant, as if stretched beyond its limits, and each tick of the clock intensified the pit in my stomach. I glanced toward the door, hoping for an appearance, any word, any sign of progress. A whir of medical professionals passed by, each absorbed in their own world, taking bits of my hope with them with every hurried step. Suddenly, footsteps grew louder, and a doctor entered the room, her expression unreadable. She appeared pleased, yet I sensed a shadow lurking behind her eyes as she approached. My heart raced anew. Mr. Blake is stable, she said, her voice firm yet comforting. He sustained significant injuries, but is responding well to treatment. We'll continue to monitor him closely. Can we see him? I asked, holding onto the flicker of hope ignited by her words. Not right now. He's in recovery, she explained gently, a hint of compassion shining through. But I'll keep you updated as soon as I have more information. Relief washed over me, though uncertainty still gripped at the edges. I nodded, murmuring gratitude, and she turned to leave. Then another thought occurred to me. There was still a way to reach out to Ava. No, wait. I called before she exited completely. Do you know a woman named Ava? She was with him at the scene. The doctor turned back, her brow furrowing slightly. Ava? Yes, she's here too. We'll see if she's able to join you. As she walked away, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. Ava, who had been so fierce and determined, was still part of this story. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her connection with Nathaniel than she had let on. My son jabbed at my side. Daddy, look. He turned the paper toward me. In crayon strokes, Nathaniel's silhouette stood tall, with the sun beaming down on him, surrounded by flowers. A message floated above, drawn in the looping hand of a child. Get better soon. We believe in you. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. In that moment, I found myself believing too, not just for Nathaniel, but for the tangled paths our lives had taken. I realized that somehow, amidst this chaos, there was a bond forming an inextricable thread between us all. Just as I was about to voice my approval of his masterpiece, the door swung open, revealing Ava, her face streaked with urgency. She looked at me, anguish shadowing her features. "Where is he?" she asked breathlessly. "I heard he was here. I need to see him." Her intensity rattled me, and I stepped closer, ready to weave the pieces together. "He's stable," I assured her, but deep down I felt the undertow of something more complex. "Ava, tell me what's really going on." She stepped forward, eyes blazing with uncontainable emotion that lit a fire beneath the surface of my unanswered questions. "You don't understand. He's not just in danger, there's more happening here than meets the eye. In that moment, I knew the storm was nowhere near over. As secrets unraveled, so too did my understanding of who I had become, intertwined with a single dad plunged into a whirlwind that was only just beginning. The lights flickered overhead as if responding to the tension crackling in the room, a stark reminder that uncertainty lingered just outside these sterile walls. I found myself staring back at Ava, her stormy eyes shimmering with a fear that churned the air thick between us. The world around me faded into the background, leaving just the two of us, locked in this moment that felt heavy with unspoken truths. "What do you mean, Ava?" I leaned in, sensing the weight of her distress tugging at my own anxieties. "What else is going on? There are people after him," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the droning hum of the fluorescent lights. "Those who want him out of the way. It's not just an accident, I can feel it in my bones. And if they think he's vulnerable, they won't hesitate to come for him again." Every fiber of my being throbbed with the implications of her words. The idea of Nathaniel Blakean, iron-willed billionaire known for his ruthless business dealings, emerging as the target of a malicious plot sent icy fingers creeping up my spine. I had thought of him as a man of power, unshakable and untouchable, and yet here he was, lying frail and broken behind institutional walls. "Ava," I began, my heart racing. "How do you know this?" "What do you know?" Her chest heaved as she tried to gather herself, the fear nuanced by something deeper, protectiveness, perhaps. It rattled my comprehension of her. This woman who had fought so fiercely at the scene, whose chaotic energy had wrapped itself around Nathaniel like a shield. "He's not just a billionaire to me, okay? He's his family," she said, choking on the words as tears threatened to spill over. Family. The weight of that simple word shifted something within me, unlocking a door I hadn't realized had been closed. "What do I need to do?" I asked, feeling the threat of an unseen enemy looming over us all. "Stay close," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "We might need each other more than we know. To want to be there for him when he wakes up. I don't know what he's up against. My son, still huddled next to me with his crayon masterpiece, sensed the change in atmosphere. "Daddy?" he whispered, stirring from his distraction, his innocence abruptly colliding with the chaos. "Is Mr. Blake going to be okay? Can I show him my drawing?" I knelt down, gathering my son's small hands in mine. "We hope so, buddy. And yes, he'll get to see it. It's beautiful, just like your heart." The brief moment of lightness softened the tension, but it didn't last. Ava's expression shifted, and I could tell she was grappling with something dark that lurked just beneath the surface. "Listen," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I need to handle something. I can't let him go into this alone. I can't let anyone hurt him again." She took a step back, ready to disappear down the hallway. Something primal kicked in, pushing aside my instinct to play it safe. "Ava, wait. Let me help you." "What can I do?" Her gaze locked onto mine, a mixture of gratitude and apprehension flickering behind her eyes. "I appreciate your concern, but this isn't a game. You need to think of your son. He's your priority." Doubt crept in, gnawing at me. I wasn't a knight in shining armor. I was just a father trying to protect his boy. But that desire to do more for Nathaniel, whose life intersected with ours in unfathomable ways, tugged at my heart. "I can't turn my back on this, Ava. Not when I feel like I'm already involved." She hesitated, clearly wavering. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, a sudden commotion erupted in the hallway, drawing both our attentions. A group of men in dark suits burst into view, their expressions grave yet determined. Panic coursed through me as I recognized the threat, an aura of aggression that seemed to coil around them. Stay back, I urged, instinctively stepping in front of my son, shielding him from the unyielding menace that approached. My body felt tight with adrenaline, my heart racing in a wild drum. Ava moved closer to me, her fear palpable. These are his security details. They must have come because if she didn't finish her sentence as one of the men locked eyes with me. We need to speak to you, he said firmly, his tone leaving little room for argument. No, Ava exclaimed, panic flaring in her eyes again. We can't let them in. They could be dangerous. Sir, please, the man continued with uncharacteristic calm. This is a matter of urgency. The air crackled with tension. I glanced down at my son, so innocent and unaware of the weight of this sudden upheaval. Ava, I whispered, seeking reassurance from her amidst the chaos. Her despair mirrored my own as she clenched her fists, ready to protect Nathaniel at all costs. What do they want? She rasped, her emotions revolving dangerously close to the edge. But before I could act or respond, another figure entered the room, a disheveled man with eyes like storm clouds. Despite the chaos, something familiar flickered in my mind. My breath caught as he stepped into the light, his gaze darting from me to Ava, then settling back on his suited counterparts. It was then that realization struck with shattering clarity, a revelation that left me breathless. It was someone from Nathaniel's past, a shadow I had not anticipated, a ghost I wished to have never encountered. Stay close to me, I murmured to my son, as I turned to face this unexpected visitor whose presence shook the very foundation of my resolve. As fear and uncertainty surged through me, I felt the thunderous echo of an impending storm, one that held more than the fate of a billionaire. It held the fate of our own lives, entwined with secrets veiled in shadows. The air was thick with confusion as the man stepped further into the room, his presence electrifying the atmosphere. I recognized him now, Daniel Cole, a name I had come across in hushed conversations and headlines, a figure notorious for his connection to Nathaniel's business dealings, and equally known for his cunning and ruthlessness. The very thought of him sent a shiver racing down my spine, every instinct screaming at me to retreat. What do you want? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. I tightened my grip on my son's hand, hoping to instill some semblance of security amidst the uncertainty. Daniel studied me, a thin smile unfurling on his lips in amusement or perhaps disdain. I'm here to discuss a matter of urgency concerning Nathaniel, he said, his tone smooth but void of warmth. It was the kind of charm that could suck the air from a room, leaving only tension in its wake. Ava stepped forward, her protective instincts rising like a barrier. This is not your place, Daniel. You're not welcomed here, she asserted, her voice breaking with barely contained emotion. I admired her bravery, yet it frightened me to witness her confront someone so unpredictable. Ignoring her, Daniel continued, You see, Nathaniel's situation is more complicated than anyone seems to think. There are forces at play that are much darker, and if you're involved now, you might want to reconsider where you draw your lines. An unsettling shift gripped my chest. I glanced at my son, peeking from behind me, innocent and yet caught in a maelstrom of adult complexities. He didn't understand the weight of the words exchanged, the gravity of the threats looming just beyond the walls, the secrets buried within our shared stories. What does that mean? I pressed, focusing on Daniel, desperately willing to understand the enigma unraveling before me. Why are you really here? He tilted his head slightly, as if amused by my ignorance. Nathaniel's enemies have identified vulnerabilities, and for now, it looks like you and your little family represent one. If you're truly looking to protect him, you'll need to recognize the risks. They can strike at any moment, and when they do well, collateral damage is often the first casualty. The dread gnawed at me, a visceral experience of fear for my son's safety intertwining with the murky depths of Nathaniel's world I was now entangled in. I need to know that my son is safe, I stated, my voice rising with urgency. Ava moved closer, urgency dancing in her eyes. We can't listen to him. He's manipulative. Greg, he'll spin this into something it's not. I wanted to cling to her words, yet the last flicker of doubt held me captive. What if Daniel was onto something? My thoughts spiraled, churning wildly. If Nathaniel were hurt again, it could ripple through our lives in ways I couldn't yet fathom. What do we need to do? I asked, desperation coloring my voice as much as my resolve. Daniel paused, letting silence fill the room as if savoring my submission. For starters, you need to take the boy and leave this place. Take him somewhere safe until we figure out the next steps. I'm sure you can manage that. No, Ava shouted. You're asking us to run? To hide? We're not going to let fear dictate our choices. The air thickened with tension, and I caught my breath, wrestling with a torrent of emotions. Should I follow Daniel's advice? Would running mean abandoning Nathaniel? We can't just leave him, I murmured, looking at Ava for support. She reached out, gripping my arm tightly. We protect him by staying, by ensuring he has people who care about him when he wakes up. We need to be the ones who are here for him. But Daniel stepped closer then, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. You think staying here will protect your son? You have no idea how far they'll go to get to Nathaniel. They are ruthless. You're playing a dangerous game, and your son shouldn't be a pawn in it. Before I could respond, my phone vibrated in my pocket, erupting from the silence like a gunshot. I drew it out, the screen illuminating the dim room. The name on the caller ID sent a jolt through. Me, Malcolm, Nathaniel's most trusted confidant, his voice ringing through my mind. You need to answer. Who is it? Ava asked, peering anxiously over my shoulder. I hesitated, glancing back at Daniel, who seemed to watch me with predatory anticipation before answering. I have to take this, I said, my heart racing. I stepped away slightly, acutely aware that our lives could shift in an instant. Don't forget what you're protecting, Daniel called after me, almost in a taunt. The sound of Malcolm's voice broke through the static of my racing thoughts. Greg, it's urgent. There's something we need to discuss about Nathaniel. You need to get out of that room now. A gut-wrenching realization set in, a horrifying sense of clarity entwining with impending dread. My life, my son's future, and Nathaniel's life hung delicately in the balance. Suddenly, the walls felt like they were closing in, each choice leading us closer to an unspeakable truth that could shatter everything. Greg, are you there? Malcolm asked, pulling me back from the precipice of panic. Yes, I stammered, steeling myself against the tide of fear flush with the uncertainty of a new path. I'm listening. As I glanced back at Ava, I could see the fear she held for Nathaniel reflected in her eyes, a shared determination coursing through us. But it came with a cost that none of us yet understood. Would this endanger my son, or was this the beginning of a journey that could change everything? The chilling truth emerged from the shadows, edging closer to realities I could no longer ignore, intertwining our fates in ways I could never have imagined. The echo of Malcolm's urgency hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as I grappled with what to do next. I was a father first, but now I had stumbled into a world where every move could lead to devastation. My son, still clutching my hand, seemed blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around us. A storm I felt ill-equipped to navigate. Greg, you need to trust me, Malcolm insisted, his tone sharp with impatience. Daniel Cole is bad news. If he's in the room with you, it means Nathaniel is in danger worse than we thought. I swallowed hard, weighing each of my choices against the fragile peace that still existed in my son's trusting eyes. If I moved to protect Nathaniel now, might that put us all in jeopardy? But how long could I remain paralyzed in the face of danger? Where are you? I asked urgently, trying to keep my voice steady. They'll be there in 5. Just keep your distance from Cole, Malcolm said before the line went dead. I glanced back at Daniel, who was watching me with a sly grin, as if he could taste my indecision. You're really going to trust that man? Daniel scoffed, leaning casually against the doorframe. Let's not pretend he has your family's best interests at heart. Ava stepped closer to me, her eyes narrowing with determination. We can't cower, Greg. We can't make choices based on fear. Fear is a valid motivator, Daniel countered smoothly. What you perceive as bravery might just lead you toward a very dark place. You need to think about what this means for you and your son. A shiver trailed down my spine as the weight of his words settled. Then, just as I was about to respond, there was a loud knock on the door that jolted everyone to attention. The sound echoed resolutely through the tense atmosphere, and I felt my heart leap into my throat. Without waiting for permission, Malcolm burst through the door, his expression grave but focused. We need to talk now, he commanded, his urgency palpable. Malcolm, I called out, relief warming me momentarily. What's going on? Daniel is the least of our problems right now, Malcolm interrupted sharply, and I caught a glimpse of fear behind his steely facade. We need to leave this place. Right now. But what about Nathaniel? I blurted, torn between my loyalty to the man who had drawn us into this conflict and my instinct to protect my son. Malcolm's eyes narrowed. Nathaniel's safety depends on our next move. If the people after him think he's weak, it's game over for all of us. They've already started making threats, and they will come for him. Daniel's smirk faltered for a fraction as the tension in the room escalated. You really think running will solve anything? He taunted, stepping into Malcolm's space, his tone dripping with condescension. True strength lies in staying put, understanding the territory, and confronting your enemies head-on. Ava stepped closer to me, her hand now firmly squeezing mine. We can't stay here. We have to trust Malcolm. He's Nathaniel's confidant, and right now he's our only link to the truth. But I hesitated, glancing at Daniel, whose eyes glinted with something dark and predatory in "oh buts." Malcolm pressed firmly. He'll call and back up enough to secure Nathaniel's safety while we regroup. But we need to go now. There's no time for hesitation. Suddenly, the gravity of our situation struck me like a punch to the gut. I turned to Daniel, defiance rising in my chest. If Nathaniel's in danger, then we have to protect him. Running won't change anything. We need a plan. Daniel chuckled darkly, his expression simmering with challenge. And what's your plan, Greg? You think a single dad with no knowledge of this world can save a billionaire? Your heart might be in the right place, but it'll get you killed. His words weighted my thoughts as I looked into Ava's eyes, searching for encouragement. Maybe it's true, I admitted, the uncertainty pressing down on me. But I can't just turn my back on Nathaniel. He's part of this family now. I have to try. Then let's try together, Malcolm said, his voice faxing into clarity. We don't need to act recklessly, but if we work as a team, we can find a way to protect what matters most. The room felt charged with an electric desperation as I nodded, resolve hardening within me. All right, let's do it. But we protect my son first, no matter what. In an instant, Daniel's amusement shifted to a grim expression. Foolishness. Remember, you're now caught in a web that extends far beyond your comprehension. Once you step into this world, there's no turning back. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table, another text from Nathaniel's hospital. A wave of urgency hit me, my fingers trembling as I opened the message. Emergency situation. Code blue patient. Nathaniel Daniels. My stomach dropped as I met Ava's terrified gaze. What did this mean for us all now? The cliff seized my breath, pulling me into its depths. As I glanced between Malcolm, Daniel, and Ava, I realized we were not just players in someone else's game. We were about to determine the stakes ourselves. Let's go, I urged, adrenaline coursing through me as we exited the room, ready to face the unknown. But as the sirens wailed in the distance, the truth loomed ominously. Our fight was just beginning, and there would be no easy answers in the dark, winding roads ahead. The cold night air hit us like a wave as we stepped outside, urgency firing through our veins. Each second felt weighted, the sirens in the distance a grim reminder of the ticking clock we raced against. I could barely breathe, my heart pounding like a drum, the reality of Nathaniel's emergency flooding my thoughts. Do you have the car? Malcolm asked, his voice steady yet quick as we hurried toward the lot. Ava glanced back at me, her hands trembling slightly. Greg, we can't let fear take over, she whispered, but I barely heard her words, lost in my own spiral of panic. What if we were too late? What if Nathaniel knew? I couldn't let myself think like that. Right here, Malcolm said, pointing to a sleek black SUV. His urgency propelled us forward, and I barely registered the vehicle's features as we piled inside. The engine roared to life, and he took off down the quiet street, navigating the shadows that cloaked our path. My mind raced as I clutched the seat, desperate to understand the implications of the text. Code blue. It felt like a death knell. What did it mean for Nathaniel and for us? What if they can't save him? I murmured, more to myself than anyone else. It's a standard procedure, Malcolm replied, his eyes fixed on the road. They might just need to stabilize him. And if they can't? My voice trembled, and I knew I was sounding desperate, but the thought of losing Nathaniel was suffocating. Hey, Ava said gently, reaching out to place her hand on mine. He's a fighter, just like you. I swallowed hard, seeking solace in her words. Her encouragement, That sliver of hope in this sea of uncertainty reminded me of what I was fighting for. When I looked at her, I remembered Nathaniel's laughter, the way he found joy even in the smallest things. As we sped down the road, I couldn't shake the feeling that Daniel's words echoed in my mind like a dark prophecy caught in a web I couldn't understand. What if we're stepping into something deeper than we realize? I confessed, feeling the weight of the unknown ahead of us. Malcolm's grip on the wheel tightened. That's why we need to stick together. If I hadn't come back for you, you would have never known the full truth. We can't give Daniel the power to dictate our actions. He spoke with conviction, but doubt still clung to me like a heavy fog. And what if it's too late for Nathaniel? My voice broke as I dared to voice my greatest fear. If we let fear win, then it already is, Malcolm shot back, fierce and passionate. We fight, Greg. For Nathaniel. Ava leaned closer, her warmth pressing against my shoulder, a reminder of the life waiting for us outside this chaos. We need a plan, Greg. What do we know? What connections can we use? Her eyes shone with determination, ready to forge a path in this tumultuous night that I closed my eyes for a fleeting moment, conjuring the connections I had: friends, family, anyone who could help. My thoughts raced to Jonathan, the doctor at the hospital who seemed to have Nathaniel's best interests at heart. They'll reach out to Jonathan once we're there. It's a long shot, but he could help. Good idea. Malcolm nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. Yet, I could sense the weight of other forces pressing down as we neared the hospital. Suddenly, the car lurched as we skidded to a halt. I blinked rapidly, trying to comprehend what had just happened. What are we doing? I demanded, glancing around as a group of shadowy figures appeared in the distance, their intentions unclear. We'll have to find another way in, Malcolm said, scanning our surroundings. It's not safe to go through the front. Daniel's insidious presence lingered in my mind, a slithering reminder that he was out there, lurking in the shadows, spinning his web of deceit. What if he's behind this? I muttered under my breath. Let's move, Malcolm urged, already exiting the vehicle. Ava and I followed suit, adrenaline coursing through our bodies as we took cover beside a nearby alley. Every moment felt like a ticking time bomb, the threat of Daniel tightening its grip around my throat. With each step toward the hospital, dread twisted my stomach. We moved stealthily, the muffled echoes of frantic hospital staff reminding us of the chaos within. Stay close, Malcolm instructed, glancing back to ensure we were all right. Just then, I felt a vibration against my Legme phone. I fished it out, my heart racing as I pulled up a notification. It was a message from Nathaniel's account. My breath caught in my throat as I read the words aloud. They're coming for me, Greg. Get out now. No, no. My voice dropped to a whisper, fear creeping in like a dark shadow. Ava gasped, her hand clutching mine tighter. Malcolm's expression hardened, a flicker of realization burning in his eyes. We have to get inside now. The urgency escalated to a fever pitch as we sprinted toward the back entrance of the hospital. With each step, my mind spun who was coming for Nathaniel, and what would we do if we weren't fast enough? Time hung in the air like a fragile thread, and the sense of loss clawed at the edges of my consciousness. I had stepped into a game far more dangerous than I'd ever anticipated, yet I knew I couldn't turn back. Not now. Not for Nathaniel. But the bitter truth loomed. This nightmare was far from over, and as I pushed open the door into the sterile hospital corridor, every instinct screamed that the darkness was closing in behind me, threatening to consume everything I loved. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as we stepped into the hospital, casting an eerie glow that only heightened my growing anxiety. The stark, sterile smell of disinfectant filled the air, mingling with the underlying scent of desperation, a constant in this place where lives hung in the balance. Over there, Malcolm said, motioning toward a cluster of medical professionals who were too absorbed in their frantic movements to notice us. That's the trauma unit. We need to get in there. My heart raced as I tried to keep pace with Malcolm, but the emotions swirling within me threatened to slow me down. Nathaniel was fighting for his life, and here I was, a storm of fear and confusion. It felt surreal, as if I was watching someone else's tragedy unfold, and yet I was utterly consumed by it. Greg, Ava said softly, pulling me back from the abyss of my thoughts. We need to breathe. The more panicked we feel, the harder it will be to think. Her eyes were fierce with determination, but I could also see the vulnerability behind the reflection of the chaos that surrounded us. I nodded, trying to absorb her words. I know. I'm trying. I choked out, forcing myself to take deep breaths, hoping to ground myself in the moment. But every second felt like a blade slicing through the air around me, reminding me of the ticking clock we faced. Ava was right. We couldn't let fear grind us down. We had to channel this uncertainty into action. Look, Malcolm said, pointing toward a door marked authorized personnel only. We can slip in there and find out more. The bitter taste of desperation clung to my tongue, but I nodded. Together, we approached the door, keeping our voices low and our thoughts even lower. Who were we to burst through, demanding answers? Malcolm pushed down on the handle, and the door creaked open slowly, as if hesitant to reveal the chaos inside. Just as we steeled ourselves to enter, another figure slipped through. Emily, one of Nathaniel's closest friends. Her face was pale, a stark contrast to the vibrancy I had known her for. Emily, I called, rushing toward her. She turned, her eyes wide, but they were filled with a mixture of relief and sheer horror. Greg, her voice broke as tears spilled over, and in that moment, all semblance of composure was lost. What happened? I demanded, panic creeping into my voice. Is he okay? Her lips trembled. They don't know yet. He was in critical condition when they brought him in. They're doing everything they can. Booty felt the ground shift beneath me. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. But what? I urged. She squeezed my arm. You have to understand, this isn't just an accident. Nathaniel saw something he wasn't supposed to see, something dangerous. And whoever is behind this, they're still out there. I think they're trying to silence him. A chill coursed through me, tightening around my chest. Those words echoed Nathaniel's earlier message, and something inside me snapped. The fragile line between fear and determination shattered, and I felt a flicker of resolve ignite within me. We can't let that happen. We have to protect him. But as quickly as that strength arose, doubt rushed back in like a tide. Who were we against this unseen threat? I was just a father, thrust into a world of shadows and danger, fighting not just for Nathaniel's life, but for my own sanity as well. Emily took a deep breath, her eyes brimming with determination. We need to find out who did this, and we need to do it together. If we're going to protect him, we have to act now. Just then, an alarm blared through the corridor, echoing against the sterile walls. Every instinct screamed inside me, raising my blood pressure as adrenaline coursed through my veins. What's happening? I asked, panic rising in my throat. Emily exchanged a look with Malcolm, and suddenly I understood. This was a diversion. They're coming, Malcolm said, his voice low and urgent. We have to go. They'll be looking for you next. Looking for me? I echoed in disbelief. What do you mean? Greg, your connection to Nathaniel makes you a target. We can't stay here. Emily's voice was urgent as she grabbed my wrist, pulling me toward the back of the corridor. The alarms grew louder, and I felt my heart race as I followed. But a fresh wave of anger surged within me. I'm not going to let them take him. I want to abandon him. Emily turned, desperation sparking in her eyes. You want to abandon him? But we need to survive long enough to do something that matters. The weight of her words hit me like a striking blow to the gut. Could we really accomplish anything against a foe that loomed in the unseen? Just then, instinct kicked in like a reflex, as if a part of me already knew what I had to do. They'll make sure Nathaniel knows we're here. I won't let him think we've turned away. Suddenly, a voice echoed down the hall, and the footsteps of hurried bodies grew louder, threatening to drown out my conviction. This way, Malcolm urged, guiding us toward a side exit. As we burst through another door, a panic-stricken scream pierced through the din of chaos, cutting through the heavy air like a knife. Nathaniel, I cried out, and in that instant, a realization washed over me like cold water. If I didn't find him soon, I might lose everything that mattered. Greg, Emily pulled me back, urgency lighting her features. We need an escape route. If we're exposed, it's only a matter of time before they catch us. That I wrestled with my instincts, torn between my need to protect Nathaniel and the intense fear of what could happen to me and the others. Yet, as I glanced into Emily's eyes, I saw a shared determination that ignited a fire I couldn't extinguish. But before I could formulate a plan, a distant crash echoed down the hall, followed by a series of frantic footsteps. Every heartbeat resonated through the air, each one a reminder of just how close we were to losing everything. Suddenly, just as I felt I might spiral into despair, a nurse darted down the corridor towards us. "This way," she gasped, motioning frantically. "You need to hurry. He's in the operating room." My breath hitched. It was merely steps away from Nathaniel. But before I could react, an explosion of footsteps approached from the other end of the hall. A familiar chill slid down my spine as I felt the insidious hand of fate tightening its grip around us. "Now," the nurse urged, breaking through the heavy tension. "Go. They'll catch you." With Malcolm and Ava grasping my arms, we sprinted toward the nurse. Whatever lay ahead, another fight, another obstacle, was insignificant compared to the urgency that pushed me forward. I had already lost too much. Now, I was willing to face anything to make sure Nathaniel was safe. But as we dashed down the corridor, my heart sinking with each passing second, I felt a sense of foreboding wash over me. The darkness lurking beyond the door loomed like a storm, unseen but undeniable. And as we stepped into the corridor, away from the chaos of uncertainty, the door slammed shut behind us, sealing our fate and leaving us in the looming shadows of what waited ahead. The hallway stretched before us like a labyrinth of unending uncertainty, each step feeling heavier under the weight of dread. My focus wavered between the urgency of getting to Nathaniel and the unshakable fear that clung to my bones like a dark fog. Emily, Malcolm, and Ava were at my sides, their expressions a mixture of determination and silent terror. We were united yet fragmented, bound by our resolve, but haunted by the reality of our circumstances. "Stay close," Malcolm urged, his voice harsh and strained. I could hear the echo of our hurried footsteps against the sterile Tylisa, a constant reminder of the risk we faced. The nurse turned sharply at a corner, ushering us past a series of glass doors that seemed to reflect our frantic lives back at us. The coldness of the glass made me shudder, both from the temperature and the realization of how precarious our situation was. "We can't stay here long," she whispered urgently. "They'll be looking for anyone connected to him. You need to move now. I need to see him," I blurted out, my voice taut with desperation. The nurse hesitated, her expression softening momentarily. "I know you want to help, but being caught here isn't going to save him. You have to trust us. We're doing everything we can." Trust. It was an elusive quality, and one I was not certain I could share in this precarious moment. But before I could voice my doubts, we rounded another corner, only to stop short as a metal door creaked open at the far end, unleashing a wave of orderlies clad in scrubs, surveying the area with hawk-like vigilance. "Go," shouted the nurse, thrusting us towards a set of stairs that spiraled upward. The urgency in her tone ignited something in me, a primal instinct that pushed aside my reservations. As we dashed up the stairs, I could feel my heart racing faster than my feet could carry me. Each step thudded in rhythm with the pounding of my pulse, and I could scarcely breathe for the anxiety coiling tight in my throat. I had to keep pushing, keep moving, even as the noise of the chaos below grew distant. I had to believe that Nathaniel still needed me, that my presence could shield him against whatever dark tide was threatening. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the roof exit. The nurse pushed open the door and motioned for us to step outside. The cool night air hit me like a cleansing wave, clearing the fog in my mind just enough for clarity. As I looked out over the twinkling city lights below, I felt a pang of loss for the normalcy I had taken for granted, but a moment of solace was short-lived. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed back from the stairwell, each noise pulling me back to the present moment. The threat was still there, lurking, waiting to pounce. Ava turned to me, her eyes wide and full of fear. "What do we do now? We can't just stand here." I racked my brain, searching for a plan, some way to reach Nathaniel without drawing attention to ourselves. The need to protect him coursed through me like electricity. "We can't go back down there if there's too much risk. Maybe there's another way to get to him from here." Malcolm scanned the surroundings, spotting a narrow ledge that could extend towards an adjoining building. It's risky, but if we can get across there, it might lead us to an area closer to the trauma unit." Hope flickered within me, warring with my fear. "Let's do it." Together, we clambered onto the ledge. My heart raced not with excitement, but with the instinctual dread of what awaited us on the other side. I had all but lost Nathaniel once. I couldn't afford to do so again. With the city sprawled beneath us, I focused on the tightrope ahead, moving with calculated steps toward whatever sanctuary awaited on the other side. The shadows lingered around, and with every heartbeat, I felt the gnawing fear of the unknown, the overwhelming sense that we were being hunted by an invisible force. Once we made it across, I felt a mix of triumph and terror. We had evaded capture for now, but I knew this wasn't over. I had never imagined my life as a single dad would lead me into a world of peril, of life and death. Here, whispered Emily, her hand gripping my forearm tightly as she pointed to an exit sign that seemed to glow intensely in the dim light. It's not far from here. We can find a way in. Darting toward the door, I hesitated for just a beat, eyes scanning the area for threats. But as we turned the handle, a wrenching sound echoed from behind us, slicing through the silence like a knife. The door swung open, and a figure appeared, a man in a dark suit, eyes shadowed beneath a furrowed brow. He smirked, recognition igniting in his gaze. My pulse quickened. This was someone from Nathaniel's world, someone who could either be our salvation or our undoing. Looking for someone. The glint in his eye sent icy tendrils of panic racing through my veins. I felt the breath leave my lungs as I grappled with the sudden twist. Just as I thought we were on the cusp of breaking through, the walls of safety began to crumble around us. In that moment, it became crystal clear. The danger had found us, and whatever fragile grip I had on hope was about to break. The man stepped closer, each deliberate movement reminding me of the stakes that had spiraled beyond my control. I suggest you turn back. This isn't a game you want to play. His voice dripped with a mocking confidence, and I could see the weight of our desperation reflected in Malcolm's furrowed brow. But there was no turning back. I could feel it deep within me. No, I said, forcing an edge of strength into my tone, even as fear quaked beneath. We're not leaving without Nathaniel. My heart raced, each beat echoing the convictions that had propelled me to this moment. Ava squeezed my arm. Her steadfast grip infused a flicker of courage into my veins. The man chuckled, but there was no kindness in it. You really think the billionaire needs you? He's a player in a game far bigger than you or your little family could ever comprehend. You're merely pawns. There it was, the sense that we were in over our heads, that the world we'd stumbled into was fraught with dangers that could swallow us whole. And yet, Malcolm interjected, stepping forward, confidence coursing through him like a surge of electricity. We're here to play the game, and you're going to let us through. There was authority behind his voice, fueled by the fierce love we all felt for Nathaniel, a one who had been pulled into our lives, even though none of us had asked for this intertwining fate. The tension thickened. The sounds of distant chaos echoed around us. The alarms still blaring, the shadows of uncertainty swirling like a tempest ready to strike. But in my chest, a surge of determination ignited. We wouldn't abandon Nathaniel to this darkness, no matter the cost. I locked eyes with the man, refusing to allow the flickering flicker of fear to compromise my presence. Tell us how to get to him, I ordered, my heart beating like thunder in my chest. A twisted smile crept across his lips. This isn't a negotiation, and I don't plan to be swayed by the emotional appeals of a family man. Your spirited defiance is entertaining. But you, before he could finish, a loud crashing sound rang through the corridor, shaking the very foundation beneath our feet. My heart lurched in panic. Others were coming, shadows ready to swallow us whole. Now, I shouted, positioning myself protectively in front of Ava and my son, who stared up at me with wide, confused eyes. This isn't just about Nathaniel. It's about protecting those I love. For a fleeting moment, the man hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty flitting through his otherwise confident demeanor. His eyes darted to the door before returning to mine, and I could see he was weighing the odds. It was enough. The crack in his armor of intimidation. The sudden rush of movement came from behind him, a wall of orderlies, their expressions focused and frantic. The man's eyes widened. He turned poor judgment into action, and before I could stop him, he lunged for the door, but I was quicker, bracing myself to shove it back in place. "No!" I shouted, my pulse racing, every muscle in my body firing as I pushed with all my strength against his weight. The sound of chaos erupted around us, a cacophony of shouts and hurried footsteps as orderlies responded to the unexpected threat. For a heartbeat, It felt like we were locked in a battle of wills, life and death hanging precariously in the balance. In one last desperate move, I shoved him aside with a surge of adrenaline, enough to send him stumbling back. There was nothing more to be lost. I was ready to fight for what mattered most. My family. My son. Nathaniel. Go, Greg. Malcolm urged, urgency lighting up his eyes, driving me forward. Without hesitating, I burst through the door that led to the trauma unit, my heart racing as I dashed into the chaotic scene before me. Bright lights flickered above, and frantic doctors hurried between patients, the sterile atmosphere stark against the pulse of danger that taunted us. Nathaniel. He was in here somewhere. My pulse quickened, anxiety pooling in the pit of my stomach. I had to find him. Greg, wait. Ava's voice pulled me back for just a moment. I glanced over my shoulder, and I could see her fear reflected in her eyes. You can't just rush in. But I had crossed that boundary long ago. I have to, I said fiercely, heart pounding. He's counting on us. I pushed deeper into the room. I finally saw him. Nathaniel lay unconscious on the operating table, tubes snaking over his body, machines beeping frantically beside him. In that moment, the reality of the chaos faded away, replaced by the singular need to protect him, to bridge the gap between my world and the one he inhabited. Stay with me, I murmured, my heart widening with awareness. I felt the energy of life coursing through me, grounding me with purpose as I stepped closer, wishing I could reach through the wires that tethered him to this fragile existence. My hand brushed against his, and I didn't want to let go. My heart willed him to wake, to fight against the shadows that threatened to pull him into the void. Greg. Ava's voice broke through my impending despair, her eyes wide as she sprang into the room behind me, followed closely by Malcolm and Emily. We can't stay here now. I turned fiercely toward them, attempt to grasp some agency within this tumultuous moment. We're not running away. Not now. Not ever. If he wakes, he can fight on his own. We owe him that much. The tension shifted, and I could see Malcolm's hesitation morph into understanding. He nodded in agreement. There was a bond tying us to Nathaniel, one that would not wither in the face of fear. Just then, I heard commotion erupt outside the room, a surge of frantic voices. I turned back, dread gnawing at the edges. Someone was coming, and they were not here for healing. Malcolm, we need a plan, I whispered urgently, adrenaline crashing over me in waves. We can't let anyone else threaten Nathaniel here, and we can't let Daniel drink from this chaos. Malcolm's eyes lit with urgency. While they're distracted, we're going to secure Nathaniel. We can't allow any more danger to come near us. Greg, you focus on Nathaniel and keep him safe. You're the reason he needs to wake. Ava, stick with Greg. Emily and I will find a way to hold off whatever is coming. Fear threaded through my thoughts as chaos erupted just beyond the door. I felt helpless, but I clung to what I could control. Just come back. I can't fight this without you, I asserted, fierce determination rising from the depths of my heart. We'll be back, Malcolm said firmly, turning and pulling Emily toward the door. I felt the weight of 1,000 fears, worries, and doubts borne on my shoulders, but I poured them into my determination, centering my focus on Nathaniel once more. The chaos behind him surged, footsteps pounding closer. Time felt fragile, but I couldn't waver. I reached for Nathaniel's hand, feeling warmth under the coolness of his skin. Come back to us, I implored softly. You're tougher than this. We believe in you. With every moment that passed, the weight of fear unnoticed began to melt like ice under the heat of determination. I could feel his spirit fighting, the intricate web of connection we had woven pulling him back toward life. The door burst open behind me, and a team of orderlies rushed in, their eyes wide with urgency. We need to prep him for immediate transfer, one of them shouted, but I couldn't let fear stop this connection now. Wait, I implored, stepping protectively in front of Nathaniel. He needs to know we're here. He needs to feel our presence. Please, move, the lead orderly said, his tone sharp as panic flickered in the air. We don't have time. But my heart surged with an unyielding hope. He's not just a patient. He's a person, and he fights for us. Just give him a moment. For a heartbeat. I froze. My world condensed into one fragile truth. The realization that love could cut through the chaos that threatened to consume us all. Just as I felt the shift beneath my clenching heart, something remarkable happened. Nathaniel's fingers twitched, just a pulse of life that sent shivers racing through me. I leaned closer, my breath catching, desperate for hope to flicker in his chest. "Come on, Nathaniel," I whispered. "We're here for you. It's time to fight." I held his hand as tightly as I dared, feeling warmth begin to emerge from his still cold skin, a flicker of life surging back to the surface. "You can do this, we believe in you." And then light. It radiated through the room, a brilliant spark awakening in Nathaniel's chest. The machines hummed louder, an orchestra of rapid beats echoing through the sterile walls until finally, his eyelids fluttered open. "Greg," he murmured, his voice raspy yet soaked in recognition. "Yes. I'm here." I pressed, my heart bursting with joy. "You're safe. We've got you." His gaze drifted, and in that moment, I could see the confusion in his eyes morphing into understanding. "You came for me," and that realization, our connection, the hope reborn against the odds, wrapped around us both like an embrace, binding the threads that tied our fates together. "Always," I promised, tears brimming as I held his gaze, conveying all I felt with that single word. Just as the orderlies moved closer to prep him, a loud crash erupted from the other side of the hospital. The chaos erupted anew, and with it, a wave of energy crashed like surf through the chaos. "Nathaniel, we'll get through this together," I whispered, knowing deep in my heart that we would rise against whatever darkness lay ahead. As Nathaniel lay there, life pulsing through him again, I realized our fight had just begun, yet we were no longer in the darkness alone. We had not only found each other, we had forged a bond. The echoes of perseverance rang loudly in our souls, claiming a space where love and hope could flourish even amidst the greatest of storms. That I, in that moment, standing resilient in the chaos, I felt the weight of the world dissipate. We were more than pawns. We were unity, a family bound by love, glittering like stars against the dark canvas of uncertainty, and we would face this storm head-on. And as the sirens wailed in the distance, I knew the final chapter of our journey was yet unwritten. But wherever the pages led us, we would gather the strength to fight together as one. And it was through that unwavering unity that I realized the most potent weapon we had was love, and that belief our shared flame would light the way, always.